To close, I would just mention something that is really very personal, because it happened one morning in our refugee house. A knock at the door. The door was opened. David, who was the coordinator of Casa Francisco, a refugee house in Oakland, made the mistake of opening the door to two immigration officials. However, he thought they were Mormons, and he welcomed them in. They asked for Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a Kenyan woman. She has a little boy of 1 year old and her mother who are living in the house. So David, despite all of our training on how, you don't open the door, and we do have rights, and we have special cards which share what the rights are. Despite that fact, David said, well, that since they were Mormons, there was no problem in opening the door, because the Mormons had visited this family quite often. So he went upstairs and he told Elizabeth that there was somebody waiting for him. Elizabeth proceeded to come down the stairs. And the immigration officials already had, presented their badges. So he asked her name, and that's all Elizabeth said. She knew her rights. She gave her name, and she was totally stunned. Elizabeth was a student and had arrived in our refugee house sometime later. She was undocumented in the country, and they were able to trace her very easily because she had come in on a visa. She also had a baby, so they traced her to Casa Francisca. Elizabeth did not know what to do. She answered no questions. But in the meantime, her mother was upstairs. Her mother came downstairs, and she said, she's a very, very large woman. And she really took over the scene, and she said, what is going on? My daughter is here. She is not doing anything wrong. Why is she being, what's the matter? She had run upstairs in the meantime. So they sat down together, and the immigration officials, there were two of them, they said, we would like to get your documents too. And she said, well, I'm an asylee. But she said, I cannot produce my documents, because I was told that I should never produce those documents unless it's something very, very important. They said, well, this is important. But they checked her out, and she was an asylee. Then she said to them, she started to weep, and really weep. And she said, my daughter needs help, and she hasn't been able to receive any help so far. She hasn't been able to get an attorney. And I'm going to Catholic Charities today to see if I can get an attorney. So the immigration official said, oh, Catholic Charities. That's a good idea, to go to Catholic Charities. So the end of the story is that he himself, he said, I worked in Catholic Charities. And he actually advocated for an attorney. He went to the lawyers' committee, who had refused to give her an attorney. But he went back and he got an attorney for Elizabeth. Catholic Charities don't have very many attorneys available. But this one immigration official, it's a very interesting story, because this is rare that something like this would ever happen. He advocated for Elizabeth. So Elizabeth has been granted an attorney, and she has been granted asylum. Last week she was granted an asylum. One reason I mention this is because I got several calls from ICE, from the immigration officials, this immigration official at home. And then next day, one of our staff said, Sister Maureen, there's somebody out there who looks like an immigration official. He wants to see you. This was the first time in 20-some years that an immigration official had ever come to the office looking for me. So I said, oh my Lord, we're harboring and abetting and all of this, so we're probably, this is going to be bad news. So Brian Stewart sat down, and he told me the story about Elizabeth, which I already had heard secondhand. And he said, this isn't a normal thing for me to do. But he said, in this case, knowing that it was the refugee house, knowing they're making such an effort to check out Catholic Charities and so on, I have decided to see what we can do for Elizabeth. However, Elizabeth was required to have her asylum case in the hands of immigration by Monday. So I went to the office on Saturday and did a really fast application for asylum this one Saturday, and gave it to her and prepared her for it in case she might not get the attorney. So she was scared. She was very scared, but all has worked unto good, and this is one of the happy stories that you will find, you know, in a situation like that. So I am very, very grateful for the opportunity that I've had over the years to see so many people have happy experiences when they are granted asylum and when they can move on in their lives, because it is in the shelter of each other that the people live, and it's in God's shelter that the people live. And they're certainly very much aware of that.